everybody. Thank you very much for being here. Tonight we have a new concept, cooperation between the Comites and the Italian Cultural Institute. The Comites is institutional organization in the representation of Italian abroad, specifically in Norway and Islam. The cooperation, we have had cooperation with Italian institutes before, so this is not the new concept, but the new concept is that we wish to offer an evening about Italian history and Italian industrialization, so the history of made in Italy, the success and maybe also the failure of maybe made in Italy lately. First of all, I wish to thank you so much to the Italian Institute for this cooperation. Thank you for being here. We chose to have this evening in English because we wish to open up to a broader public, not only Italians, not only Norwegian, maybe a sort of internationalization. I think I know everybody here. For the few ones who do not know me, my name is Elisabetta Wolf, and I'm leading the Comites-Oslo. The topic of these two seminars, as you have probably read in the invitation, is, as you can see, a great adventure, memories of Italian industrialization. We are here tonight, first, and next time is Monday, 25th of November, with another episode, Italy and de-industrialization, decline and innovation between 20th and 21st centuries. However, the protagonist of this evening is Stefano Agnoletto, who will tell us about this story. Stefano is an historian and economist. He had first a PhD at the University of Naples, and a second PhD at Kingston University in London. Now he's visiting a research fellow at the BI in English, Norwegian Business School in Oslo. Until August 2018, he was the head of the department Didactics at Fondazione ISEC, which is the Institute for the History of the Contemporary Age in Milan, Italy. And after August 2018, Stefano has decided to move to Norway together with his wife. They are both working in Oslo, in Norway. So we are so glad because we have an expert in Italian history, an expert in Italian economic history. This is new for us. From Milan, which is the heart of Italian industrialization and made in Italy, as you know. So I'm really looking forward to hearing this conference, this seminar, I don't know how to call it. Stefano has an enormous academic production. Over the last 2 decades, he has collaborated with many universities in Italy. I have to read because otherwise I think it's impossible to remember. In Italy, in Canada, in the United States, in Great Britain, in Spain, in Poland, and Russian Federation. So you really have a very very broad academic experience. And he has, of course, published both monographies, books, and peer-reviewed articles. My greetings to the Italian ambassador who is here together with us. And I give the floor to Stefano. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Elisabetta, for your kind presentation. Two wonderful presentations. Thank you very much, Giovanni. And thank you very much to the Istituto Italiano di Cultura and Comites-Oslo that gave me the opportunity to talk about an aspect of Italian history that maybe we are not so familiar with. I mean, all of us know about the successful made in Italy. Food, fashion, wine, shoes, wonderful Italian cities, cars, and so on. But today, I want to focus on another aspect of Italian history. I want to focus on the fact that Italy, it has been a member of the G7 since the beginnings, 1975. It means that at that time it was one of the 7 largest advanced economies in the world. So I want to explain and to tell the history, the adventure of Italian industrialization. It means that I want to speak about this brand, but not just about this brand. I want also to tell something about this history, about Eni, Breda, Edison, Olivetti, Borletti, Italtel, Alfa Romeo, and so on, because they are also part of our history. But if we want to talk about the history of Italian industrialization, we have to go back to the ancient roots of it. We could go back at least to the 11th century, to the famous Repubblica Marinara, when, for example, a small village in the south of Italy, Amalfi, dominated the trade in the Mediterranean Sea. Or we can go to Pisa. Pisa is very famous, not for the tower, but Pisa was really also at the center of the trade in the western and eastern part of the Mediterranean. And Genoa. The domination of Genoa lasted for centuries. It was at the center of trade that went from Crimea till the Netherlands. And, of course, Venice. Venice was the bridge between the West and the East for centuries. But the modern banking was born in Italy. Here you can see a fresco by Niccolo Girini. Now it's the church of San Francesco in Prato. And it's interesting because this fresco is about Tuscan bankers. We are used to think about Renaissance, about Madonnas and something like that, but it's full of frescoes about traders, about employers, about bankers. You have to remember that this modern bank in Western world was the Bank of San Giorgio in Genoa. Here you can see a bank ledger. It came from the 1485. And again, Italy was also a land of inventions and inventors. For example, there is a myth of Flavio Gioia. Here you can see the monument dedicated to him in Amalfi. He is supposed to be the inventor of the magnetic compass. You can understand the importance of this tool for navigation. And, of course, Leonardo da Vinci, the ornithoptero. We are at the roots of the flight, of the aeronautical industry. He was able to think about a machine that could fly. Clearly, we could only imagine it. and the scientific revolution. Italy was at the center of scientific revolution. Yeah, Galileo Galilei. Yeah, but it was not just about the sun at the center of the solar system. Galileo Galilei, for example, meant the improvement of the telescope, new tools for the scientific evolution of the humanity. And 19th century, Alessandro Volta, for example, and the invention of the first power generator ever made, the battery. It means something really at the core of the Industrial Revolution. And, for example, the Venetian arsenal. Here, for centuries, since the 14th century, they produced thousands of ships. Here worked together thousands of workers. We can think the arsenal as the single largest industrial complex in Europe prior to the Industrial Revolution. So, these are the answer roots of industrial success of Italy. Then something happened. We have no time, but we know we had the crisis of the 17th century. What happened? Basically, it happened that the center of the Western economy moved from the Mediterranean Sea to the Atlantic Ocean and to the Pacific Ocean. But at the end of the 19th century, we had a new departure. Well, Italy was a later comer. Italy was not England, was not Germany, was not France, was not the United States. Italy later. But, for sure, the modern Italian industrialization has been an history of success. You see here we are really at the beginning of modern Italian industrialization. 1884. This is the Edison, and they built, pay attention, the first power plant in Milan. Here instead we have a picture of first electric tram in Milano. They built it in 1893. And the steel industry, maybe you know, but the steel industry really was the strategic sector of the second industrial revolution in the second part of the 19th century. And here we have the Terni and Elba, and they were protagonists of it. But, for example, I want to focus on a small company. It was Osman factory in Sesto San Giovanni, close to Milano. Here, between 1903 and 1908, they produced electric cars. Look at the years. 1903, 1908. We know we are in Oslo, no? The capital of electric cars. Here you have the origins. And you can see the Amazonia electric car produced by Osman, a sort of a myth in the history of electric cars in all the world. Yeah, of course, by the way, there was Fiat. It was established in 1899. This is the first car by Fiat. It's the myth of Fiat, Fiat 40 HP. And then Breda. Breda was really a protagonist of European industrialization in this period. They worked in another strategic sector, railway, locomotives, and so on. Here is a picture of 1892 on. The most part of the picture I'm going to show, they came from the archive of Fondazione ISEC. Fondazione ISEC is based close to Milano, and basically is one of the most important archives for the history of Italian industrialization. So these are engineers, clearly old men. It was the end of the 19th century in Italy, and this is the Breda engineers. And this is the Alessandro Volta Breda locomotive. It was exhibited at the Universal Exposition in Paris, and it was an incredible success. Okay, clearly we have to remember that what was Italy at that time. The period of the first Italian Industrial Revolution was the period of mass emigration. Millions and millions of Italians went abroad. Between 1876 and 1914, the year when the First World War began, over 40 million Italians left Italy. They went to South America, North America, Australia, and also Northern Europe. And yeah, I quoted the First World War. Yeah, this is the dark side of our industrialization, because the First World War, that just for Italy, it meant 600,000 dead. It became an incredible opportunity for Italian industrial boom. We had the first real industrial boom during the war. And something else happened. Look at this picture. This picture is in Breda. Clearly Breda, as well as all the bigger factories in Italy, they shift to build weapons. Like here they are building bullets for weapons, for army, and so on. You see, women. The factories, for the first time, had a working class composed especially by women. It was the first time in the history of Italy that thousands of women went to work out. Because clearly, women have always worked a lot. They worked in the agricultural land, they worked in the houses, but here for the first time, thousands of women went together in the factories. Why? Because the men were fighting in the war. And here we have many pictures about this. It's always Breda in the First World War. Clearly, still men remain there. But really, we are at the core of the first Italian industrial boom. Boom is a good expression, I'm fond of this. The First World War, it was an opportunity for industrialization. This is very sad to say. Then, industrialization also meant social conflict. In 1919 and 1920, Italy had what was called Red Biennium, the Biennium also, when you can read Gramsci about that in Turin and so on, when thousands of workers of the new working class tried to take the control of the factory. Here it's a picture in Milan in September 1920. We were not able to recognize the factory. We were not able to recognize which factory is this. Anyway, the industrialization went on, the fascism came, and the women remain in the factories. Yeah, it's Marelli. They produce something that usually in Norway is not that interesting, but it's fun. But maybe with climate changing, it will become interesting also here. But engineers, managers, office workers were all men, of course. Here it's a picture at Breda in the 20s, and you can't find any women here. They were in the production, not here. Post-war modernity, it was also the epic of Italian aeronautical industry. In the 20s and the 30s, Italy represented one of the top nations in this sector. Here we are at Breda at a triplan departing. And this is a picture of Breda Aeronautica. And Fiat. This is the famous Fiat Balilla. It was the cars for the Italian bourgeois. And you can see, for example, the Spider. It was really trendy at that time in the high class in all around Italy. What kind of industrialization? we can call it a sort of patriarchal industrialization. What means this? It means that factories also means, for example, a place where the workers can play football. This is a team, look at that, yes, but yeah, I can't speak about it. Yes, you see. But anyway, this is a picture from 1928. Pay attention, and it's not for Mussolini, but it's for Mario. That's interesting. It was also a place where there were professional training schools for children. You see the age of this? Look at this, probably about 10 years old, no more. You have to remember that there was not the idea of a welfare state in Italy at that time. And the basic, it was within the companies. This is a holiday house for workers in Cesenatico, organized by Breda. Cesenatico, it was a nice place on the Adriatic Sea. And here was Christmas presents for the children workers in 1935 in Milano. We are out of the Dopo Lavoro Breda, where the workers could go to play, to stay together after the time of job. Clearly, there was a dark side of that. The alliance between fascists and big companies. We have to remember that in 1925 and 1926, the fascist regime erased all the workers' rights in the workplace. For example, it was suppressed the right to strike, and all the trade unions basically were banned, with the exception of the fascist trade unions, of course. And thousands of anti-fascist workers were arrested and put control over the workplace. It was systematic. It means we have to say this. So on one side, we had houses for workers, kindergarten for children, and so on. On the other side, it was a real strict police control on all the workplaces in Italy at that time. And this is a very famous passage in our history when the visit of Benito Mussolini to the Fiat Lingotto factory in 1932, it basically represented the idea of a linkage between the fascist regime and the working class, the Italian working class. Then the Second World War came. This is an example of what was Italy after the Second World War. This is a picture of Milano after August 1943 bombing. This was the situation. Clearly, the reality of Italian industrialization was a sort of year zero. But we have to tell that we had a new beginning for Italian industry. This picture came from Breda Archive. I'm not sure if 1946 or 1948, but they started in Italy to build the BZ 308 that represented really a good example how to build airplane that time. But clearly, the passage was the Italian economic miracle. What happened in the 50s and 60s? Well, we can see some numbers to understand what happened. In 1958, in Italy were produced about 370,000 cars. 5 years later, more than 1,100,000. Look about washing machine and refrigerators, but they were the symbol of the Italian economic miracle, because they appeared within the Italian houses. Look at the numbers. 10,000 in 1958, 1,263,000 washing machines in 1965. Really, this is when Italy became an industrial country. Look at this number. In 1952, the 41% of the worker worked in the first sector, in agriculture. The situation was completely different in 1971. This is a figure. You can understand what you can see what happened to the per capita GDP in this period. And to understand the meaning of this, Italy grew with average rate of GDP growth about 50.8% between 1951 and 1973, and 5% per year between 1964 and 1973. It was second in Europe just to Germany, and among the OECD countries, only Japan had been doing better. So you can have an idea what happened. Italy was really one of the leaders of industrialization in post-war period. And this meant, sorry for the picture, really still tiny picture, but this is the idea. It gave the idea what was going on in Italian houses, Italian homes that time. Okay. It's very good because there you can see it's not a letter 22, it's a letter 32, but it's the same. Thank you very much. You can see one of them there on. Yeah. And what is letter 22? Letter 22 is a symbol of Italian economic model. It was produced by Olivetti, another mythological company of Italian industrialization. In 1959, the Illinois Institute of Technology chose the letter 22 as the best design product of the last 100 years. Still now, letter 22 is exposed at permanent exhibition at MoMA in New York. I would like to show an advertisement for letter 22. It's in French. Yeah. Oh, sorry, I made a mistake. I thought it was the 20. Sorry. Sorry. Well, but if we talk about Olivetti, you have to speak about a forgotten, almost forgotten, incredible and paradigmatic history. When Olivetti invented the first personal computer of the history. October 14, 1976, New York, BIM Exposition. It was presented the Programma 101. As the Wall Street Journal wrote the day after, it is the first desktop-sized computer of the history. It means the first PC. Years earlier by Steve Jobs and Bill Gates. Produced by Olivetti, it was an immediate success. About 44,000 units were sold primarily in the US. This was Programma 101. It was designed between 1962 and 1964 in the Olivetti laboratory in Ivrea. Look at this advertising for the American market, if I'm able to. Yeah.
Mr. Johnson, this is the computer center. So sorry to call you this late, but the computer is available if you want to get your urgent work done.
This man is working against time, computer time. Why? Because there are not enough computer facilities available today. So important research projects can't get off the ground. Some computers are fully booked for months ahead. Highly paid men and women have to spend hours on routine computations. Until today. Today, these expensive and frustrating delays are no longer necessary. Because Olivetti have developed Programmer 101, the world's first desktop computer. The Programmer 101 is compact. The Programmer 101 is portable. The Programmer 101 sells at a fraction of the cost of a large computer. Yet the programmer is a true digital computer. It can be programmed to perform complex operations with the speed and efficiency of a large machine. To the businessman, the Olivetti programmer can be used where it is needed, when it is needed, in the office or at home. The programmer is efficient and so simple that a good secretary can learn to operate it in a matter of days. To the civil engineer, the programmer means that long and difficult computations can be carried out immediately on site. For the programmer is robust, easily transported, and easily set up. In industry, the programmer can be used for quality control, for stock control, and for giving warning of increases in failure rates. The programmer also has an important role as a sidearm for the large computer user, in program writing, for example, and to test new methods. In commerce, the programmer has many uses. Here, for example, is a family about to buy a new house. The programmer can be used to compute the mortgage repayments, interest rates, and the life assurance statistics. This secretary is selecting one of the basic categories of program from Olivetti's vast library. Note the magnetic card on which the program has been prepared, enabling the user to store the answers to repetitive problems. The low cost and versatility of the programmer make it ideal for students specializing in computer technology. Even a small technical college can afford to equip itself with a Programmer 101 laboratory. This means that for the first time, it's possible for every student to graduate with practical experience in the use of a digital computer. The Programmer 101 offers unlimited possibilities in research and science. Whilst there are computations that call for a larger machine, many, perhaps indeed all, the established mathematical operations used by scientists can be performed on the programmer, quickly, efficiently, and at much lower cost than with any other computer. The programmer won't pick the winner for you, but it will settle complex betting calculations quickly and easily.
Racing in the lead on the rails nearest to us. Ultradon is a close second, then Lucasnet and Green troops towards the outside. Starboard watches it moving fast on the outside.
This then is the Olivetti Programmer 101, the world's first desktop computer. Take a look at one in action.
So, I want to remember you that we are in the 60s. Really, it's sad that basically we have forgotten. And Programma 101 literally went on the moon. It means that NASA bought 45 Programma 101 to compile the lunar maps and to elaborate the trajectory of the journey of Apollo 11, which, you know, in 1961 brought the man to the moon. And it's also interesting what I wrote here. Elliot Packard, that then became the leader in the production of PC, was ordered to pay about $900,000. Today means about 7 million in present day terms, in royalties to Liberty after copies of the solution used in Programma 101 when they produced the HP 1000. Then Vespa. This is not forgotten. Really, this is a myth of Italian industrialization. Vespa was created on April 23, 1946, from a brilliant intuition of Enrico Piaggio. Piaggio is the name of the factory or the company that produced Vespa. That we want to create a low-cost and widely used product, and it was successful. This is the first, the Vespa 98. The most famous and beloved scooter in the world was born. And I want to remember that the Italian motorcycle industry, it was not just the Piaggio and the Vespa. Another interesting myth was Lambretta. Here you can see the assembly line, the 50s of Lambretta. It was, the production of Lambretta started in 1946, so immediately after the Second World War. And then, clearly, the Fiat 500. This was the car of the economic Italian icon. It was the car for all. You remember when I talked about Balilla, in the 30s, Fiat tried to produce the car for the bourgeois. Here the idea was the car for all. And the first Fiat was the first Fiat 500 was sold on July 4th, 1957, and in 20 years, 4 million were sold of it. Clearly, Fiat is not just 500, there is a list till the 1994, some of them were very famous and successful, other clearly less, but the epic of Italian automotive industry was not just Fiat. For example, here is a picture from Alfa Romeo factory in the 50s, but Ferrari, Maserati, Innocenti, Pininfarina, Lamborghini, Lancia, and so on. In the 60s and the 70s, really, the Italian car style dominated the world market. And then we come to another very interesting history. Probably not many of you are familiar with this history, but it's very, very interesting. It was the history of the ATR 300, the so-called Sette Bello. Okay, we are in 1952, and Breda was able to build a high-speed electric train that it boasted to a maximum speed of 200 kilometers per hour. I repeat, we are in the 1952. And it was not just about speed, it was really a new idea of train. Here there is a short description of furnishing interior of this train in the 50s. Look at it. And, well, this industrial successes mean the birth, for the first time really, of a new mass working class in Italy. For the first time in history, really, the blue collar represented the most part of the labor population in Italy. Here is, for example, a picture of Cultura's workers in 1958. Here, instead, 20 years later, it's assembly line, the cap factory, Alfa Romeo in Arese. Milano Arese was the most important site for Alfa Romeo. Nowadays, it's closed down, it doesn't exist anymore. Here, there are workers on an assembly line for production of ice cream. I must speak about ice cream when I speak about Italy, but it's interesting, but definitely, since the 50s, especially in the 60s, women became a large part of this new working class, definitely. And here, for example, there are some workers of Borletti. Borletti is another myth of Italian industrialization, was very famous for the sewing machine they produced and they were sold all around the world. And women also worked, not just in some sector, but here you can see women working in Breda in the 50s. And at Italtel is a leading Italian telecommunication ICT company founded in 1921. But also during the economic miracle, we have to tell that this is the situation. This is the marine management in the 50s. They are all men. This is important. The situation started to change in Italy in the 70s, 80s, if we speak about gender relation within the labor market and relation forward. What is interesting, but as Italy became an industrial country, the factories became one of the center of the social life, really. Here it's an interesting example. This is a picture about Abbado. Maybe you know Abbado, very famous. In 1975, he decided to make a tour, but where? In some factories all around Italy, in Fiat, in Alfa Romeo. Here it's Innocenti. This is a moment of his concert, Innocenti. The idea was that factories are a good place also for classic music. Clearly, economic miracle also means mass consumption and mass distribution. On November 27, 1957, the first Italian supermarket opens in Milan. This is the first. This is a picture. And then at the department store, it's a picture of 1961 with workers and customers in the department store. And this is how the Italian cinema represented. We have to remember that in the 60s, also in the 70s, the Italian cinema was really a successful industry. It was basically, it could compete with Hollywood that time. We have three famous movies that really describe what the Italian economic miracle was. The first is La Dolce Vita, maybe you know it, with Marcello Mastroianni, the idea that you can enjoy the life. Economic miracle means you can enjoy the life. The second, Alberto Sordi, another famous Italian actor, with Un American Rome, an American Rome, when he eats, he can eat now. Now he can eat. And then Vittorio Gassman in Il Sorpasso, the idea of speed. Italy was running fast. This was the idea, the message they gave. This is the explosion of Italy. But still there were dark sides of the Italian economic miracle. We have to remember that still in the 50s and the 60s, mass migration was a characteristic of Italy. Still, we have two photos, for example. The first is about mass internal migration from the south to the north. Because when I talk about Italian economic cycle, we should tell was more North Italy economic cycle, unfortunately. And the South provided the working class. That was one of the most important limits of successful of the Italian industrialization. The second is mass migration to other countries. Basically, the countries of destination changed. Now, the most part of them went to Northern Europe, Germany, Netherlands, England, some of them came to Scandinavia, Norway too, and so on. Here it's a picture of the relatively small city of Wolfsburg in Germany. And another point. We have this economic cycle. Clearly, it meant wealth and growth, but also the increasing of incredible inequality in Italian society. The point was, okay, the GDP grew, but the income distribution worsened. And what happened? It was an explosion of social conflict. Especially this here in Italy, very important. In the 1961, it's 50 years now. Probably, in my opinion, in Italy, the 1961 was more important than 1968. It's the so-called autumn. What happened in Italy at that time? This is an example. We are in 1960. We are in Milano. This is a trade union demonstration. We are workers of the tourist sector. We worked in the hotels and so on. And look at the poster. He wrote, in the city of the miracle, we are paid 25,000 lira per month. It means here there is a miracle, here there is the Italy which is able to run, but we want our part. And here's another picture, is from Piaggio, at Piaggio factory. The companies produce the wonderful Vespa, and there is a demonstration. On the poster is written, we will resist 1 minute longer than Piaggio. Piaggio was Mr. Piaggio and also the name of the company. Here we are in Breda. We are not sure about the year 1970 or 1971. It's a picket line during a strike. This was the time. This was the time, really, we had the economic cycle, then we had this. Often the square of Italy were full of the workers who worked in the factories and the companies of the Italian market. They asked for their part. And another point. What is interesting, that something happened. Something happened. Because the Italian economic miracle and the birth of the Italian means also the birth of the Italian welfare state. It means that finally in the 70s, for the first time in its history, Italy had a sort of real universal welfare state. It was an attempt to overcome what I called a patriarchal pattern of capitalism and the traditional familistic society that featured Italy. And so here there is a list of very interesting reforms performed by Italy, the reform of the school system, the pension reform, the reform of employment benefits, the housing policy, the reform of family law about gender relation, and, very important, the reform of healthcare reform. For the first time, Italy had a universal wealth system for all. Well, I'm almost at the end. I want to finish to talk about one incredible history, the history of Eni. I talked about Fiat, about Olivetti, about Piaggio, Borletti, Breda, and so on. I want to finish with this. The Eni of Enrico Mattei. I don't know, but I think in your way it's interesting to speak, to talk about it. Because, you know, Norwegian oil, we know the linkage. This is about an oil company. It was the Italian company that challenged the oil multinationals during the Italian economic miracle. Eni was founded in 1933 and Mr. Enrico Mattei was nominated Eni's chairman. It was a state company that played a strategic role in supporting, basically giving the energetic resources we need, the Italian economic miracle. It challenged both the Italian traditional private companies, but especially the oil multinational company that dominated the world at that time. It's, in my opinion, an exciting history of entrepreneurial success. What was the first Eni's objective? Clearly, to make the necessary energy resources available to the Italian industrial growth produced by economic miracle. Our problem was, okay, we want to produce, we are able to produce, but we need energy. We have no oil, what do we do? And then they found it. They found oil and gas resources in the Po Valley and Sicily. And they went, you see here in Ragusa in Sicily in 1956. Then they created an incredible gas pipeline network all around Italy. It allowed the exploitation of natural gas for proper residential, but especially for industrial use. So the companies of Italian miracle could work. But it was not sufficient. Mattei understood that Italy had to go out to look for its energy resources. We need oil, we need energy. And he was aware that it meant to challenge the big American and European multinational companies that at that time dominated the oil market worldwide. In 1958, Eni acquired extensive exploration rights in North Africa. It signed an agreement with the Egyptian government led by Nasser. In 1957, Eni made a similar agreement with the National Iranian Oil Company. In 1960, we are during the Cold War. Eni signed an agreement with the Soviet Union for the importation of Russian crude at low price. In the following years, Eni signed contracts with Libya, Tunisia, Nigeria, etc. This is a picture of Eni oil drilling and production in Egypt. We are about to begin with 70s. We were not 60s. We were not able to know exactly the year of this photo. And there was something called the Mattei formula. Then I can explain that. It's interesting to listen to Mattei himself and explain what was the Mattei formula. And that was really the core of this incredible entrepreneurial success. It's in Italian with English subtitle.
Erano abituati a considerare i mercati di consumo come riserve di caccia per la loro politica monopolistica. E noi abbiamo cominciato a rompere questo. Abbiamo cominciato a rompere perché siamo passati al di fuori di queste grandi compagnie, di questo cartello. E quindi il discorso è più grosso. Perché io penso che noi dobbiamo andare verso un rapporto diverso nel mercato petrolifero. Vede, Eni ha iniziato una nuova forma, che è quella di pagare i diritti che pagano gli altri, in più di interessare il paese al 50% nella produzione, nello sviluppo delle proprie risorse. Naturalmente partecipa sia quando c'è di buono, come anche per quello che può essere di cattivo. Ma questo non è altro che il primo passo verso quei rapporti diretti che dovranno per forza intervenire, mettendo da parte tutto quello che è l'attuale assetto del mercato petrolifero mondiale. Ci sarà il rapporto, dovrà venire il rapporto diretto fra il paese produttore e il paese consumatore. E allora questi paesi potranno vendere anche al 45% di meno di quello che vengono venduti i prodotti oggi, incassando gli stessi denari, cioè non essendoci più il terzo intermediario in mezzo.
This was the historian called the Mattei formula. And you can understand what this kind of policy represents for the oil multinational who control the market at the time. Basically, the idea of Mattei was to give an equal role for the good producing countries, to establish joint venture, not just go there and exploit the resources. In this way, Italy became the protagonist in the world. It became one of the bigger oil multinational companies in the world. This is really something that, as Italian, I should be proud of. This one. Unfortunately, this part sometimes is forgotten. Also because there is a sad end of this history. On 27 October 1962, Enrico Matteo's airplane mysteriously exploded on its way to Milano from Catania. This is something that remains in our history. Was never clear what happened, what really happened there. And there are many doubts, but no, I don't want to speak about it. This is what happened. So anyway, at the end of this history, Italy, in 1991, Italy came to be the fourth industrial power in the world. We don't know if really it was the fourth, the fifth, the sixth. But for sure, till the end of the 80s, beginning of the 90s, Italy was one of the most powerful industrial countries in the world. And this is history I wanted just to tell you about. And so, thank you. And if you wish, on November 25, I want to speak about what's happening after that, the last decades. What happened with the industrialization, decline, and also innovation, the new Italy that is the post-industrial Italy of today. So, thank you very much. I want just to tell you that after 1 minute, I can show some, you can see some movie from the 50s, 60s about the TRS if you want to enjoy them. Okay.